Hi, everyone. Welcome to our second episode of Composer of the Month. I'm so excited to share that I'll be interviewing living composers from now on, and today's episode will be featuring Brannon Warn-Johnston, a young composer and violinist. She is one of the most talented musicians that I know, and I'm so grateful to collaborate with her for this video. Hi, Brannon. It's so nice to see you. How are you
Great.
doing?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah, it's a privilege to be doing this interview with you. So, I had a couple of questions for you. Let's just get through these. I wondered, when did you start composing?
Yeah, so it's hard to say exactly. I guess ever since I started learning music, I wanted to write my own. I've just heard music in my head that I wanted to be able to write down and share with others. When I was selecting a piece to perform at my first violin recital, I think I was like 6 or 7. I was shocked to hear that people would be performing pieces that they didn't write. It seemed wrong to play something you didn't create. So I ended up compromising and performed a medley I wrote of several early Suzuki pieces.
Hmm. Wow, that's great. That's really cool. And in your first steps of composing, who were your mentors? Who helped you out?
Yeah. So it was very hard to find a composition teacher who would teach someone as young as I was. When I told my moms I wanted to write my own music, and I don't come from a family of musicians, my mom worked really hard to find me a teacher and to support me as a composer. And she contacted like so many teachers, and most of them only taught older students, but she found someone. So.
That's great. Yeah. And what was your first piece? Do you remember that?
Yeah. My first full piece I wrote and got performed is called Springtime Frogs, and you can listen to it on my website. And my style, I think, has changed in that like I think people often seem to think that a new composer's music is going to be easier to play because they're just starting out. But I kind of think it's the exact opposite for many reasons. One of which being that they don't yet know what works well on each instrument or how to write things that flow well. And also, they may not have like as much exposure to music of other composers yet, and therefore don't know what things musicians are used to seeing versus what is surprising or even like seems strange to them. So that's all to say that I just think that the first piece I wrote is one of the more difficult pieces to perform that I've written so far versus like an easier one.
Yes.
And I think I've also learned uh, to write music much quicker and more efficiently since then, and probably grown in other ways too. I don't know.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah. What are your hopes and dreams for the future?
Well, honestly, I guess I kind of have a lot like musically and not musically, but I don't think I'll share them all right now. But one of my dreams is to perform the second movement of Prokofiev's Violin Concerto Number 2 in G minor with a full orchestra. It's one of my favorite pieces of music, and I think it'd be really cool.
That's a good dream. Yeah. And back to your music, do you see a particular performer playing your pieces?
I guess I don't have anyone specific in mind right now, but later this year, a different violinist will be performing a solo I wrote for myself and performed, and I'm really excited to see how or if he interprets it differently, and it should be like interesting to see how it goes. I think someday it would be really cool to get to collaborate with a musician over a longer period of time to like create a piece that was crafted for their skills more specifically, but I don't have like a specific person in mind right now.
Okay. Yeah, that's valid. And recently you participated in the Merriman-Ross Young Composers Workshop. Could you tell us a little more about this project?
Yeah. So last year was my third year in the program. And when I was little, we would go to the workshop concerts each year. and I always enjoyed watching them. It took me a little while before I was like qualified for the workshop, but it's a really great opportunity, and I'm really glad I applied. Like, it's really great to get to work with the symphony musicians and the instructor, and it's just really cool to get your piece performed by such advanced musicians.
Yeah, that's very sweet. Will you be doing it this year?
I'll be applying, yeah.
That's really cool. And let's talk about your new piece, A Year with Cancer. I remember being at the premiere and I enjoyed it very much. It's a very deep work of music. And I was wondering, how did you think of the idea of adding the background and electronic noises to the violin part?
Yeah. Well, so I guess I recorded a lot of sounds from the hospital and my treatment, and the loud scans of MRI sounds and other scans, and sounds of the blood pressure cuffs that are used every few hours through the day and the night in the hospital during my treatment. And my surgeon was actually able to record the sounds of the saws that were used to cut my bone and other tools that were used in the operating room during my surgery to place my implant. And in the piece, there's also some melodies that were inspired by the music I listened to during certain periods of my cancer treatment. Music is very important to me, and it helps me get through treatment and have something to look forward to. That piece is a way of expressing what I've been going through, a year of it, and sharing it with the world. And the electronics represent the hospital, and the violin is me navigating this all. And if you're interested in seeing it performed again, Alana Zaks, a violinist from the Seattle Symphony who premiered it, will be performing A Year with Cancer on November 10th, 2024 at Kenyon Hall in West Seattle at her recital.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great news. Thank you for sharing. Um, and something that I wanted to discuss with you, an experienced composer, is writer's block. So composing when faced with a deadline can be a pretty difficult task. I have faced it before. And have you ever had writer's block in this situation?
Um, Honestly, I actually find deadlines like very motivating, and sometimes I find it easier to write with a deadline rather than without, because it just sort of motivates me to write music. I don't normally have a lot of trouble with writer's block because I tend to have way too many ideas instead of too few. So it's more like deciding what to write, like which one of my ideas is best here rather than like not having an idea of what to write. And then sometimes I like have so many ideas for how the piece could go. I feel like maybe I need to write like three different versions to try them all out.
Yeah, it's a little more difficult for me to write, especially the deadline, but I feel like everyone has their own way of approaching it, so I'm glad it works for you.
Yeah,
And
I feel like
yeah.
everyone's different.
Mm-hmm. And back to your pieces. Last year, the Seattle Symphony performed your piece, Misty Oasis in Scorching Heat.
Mhm.
Could you describe your experience of working with the Seattle Symphony? Because it must be a very great experience.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was a one of a kind opportunity. I learned a lot about writing for orchestra, from like formatting parts to rehearsal techniques and orchestration. And it was really great to get, I loved working with Angelique, the composer in residence, and the librarians and the symphony and the conductor Sonny and everyone else. And I learned just how much I love writing for the full orchestra, and I've been able to have some of my other orchestral compositions performed since then. So it was a really like good opportunity to just experience that with like such a great symphony. And so yeah, if you'd like to hear Misty Oasis in Scorching Heat, you can find a video of the performance on Seattle Symphony Plus. The link's on my website, and the Seattle Festival Orchestra will be performing it along with my composition Escape on November 23rd and 24th of 2024. So, yeah.
Mhm. And this is kind of my own question, but how did you think of the name for your piece?
Yeah, so the piece is about going backpacking and a specific time we went backpacking near Mount Rainier in a heat wave. And so the Misty Oasis was this cool waterfall, and the temperature difference, like near the waterfall, it was like walking out of an oven into a refrigerator. It was like this cool place. And then the Scorching Heat is the just it was smoky and hot, and so that's sort of how I thought up that title. It's kind of long, but I felt like
Um,
it depicted what I was trying to convey. So
yeah, do you do that with most of your pieces? Like
like
the naming process for your piece?
yeah. I tend to end up with longer titles than I intend, but I often write pieces that are have like a story behind them. So I think that's kind of why.
Yeah, and the last question for this interview is, are you currently writing any new pieces?
Yeah. So I've been having a lot of cancer treatment right now, so I haven't been able to work on it a huge amount. But the piece I'm working on right now is a suite of short pieces about fun things to do in the snow and cold weather. The first movement is about ice skating. There's a funny little one about like going up the sledding hill and then sliding back down. And there's a snowball fight, and it's gonna end with a sleigh ride, and it's for string quartet. And I think maybe I'll call it Winter Whimsies.
Oh, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Well, that is it for this interview. I will be placing a link in the description of Brannon's website so you can find most of the recordings on there. But also make sure to attend the events that Brannon mentioned. And thank you again so much for this interview. And I'm very happy to start doing this project. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Nina. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah. Okay. Bye. See you next time.